People have complained for years about the fact that we just keep revisiting the Kanto region, and hey, as a Pokemon lore enthusiast, I get it. The lore of the Kanto region is pretty lackluster. To go back there again, well, that might be a little bit disappointing. I'm actually kind of glad to see it destroyed in Pokopia, because at least we get to see it in a way we've never seen it before. Areas like Vermilion City have become the bleak beach, or Saffron City has become the sparkling skylands. And what was once Fuchsia City is the withered wasteland where we start the game. But it's not just the future of Kanto we get to see here, for at the back of the withered wasteland, behind bars of steel or a rocky mountain of rubble, are doorways to not just the game's final secret, but also possibly some actual lore for the Kanto region. Lore that myself and Amaze Dragon, after chatting about it for about 3 hours on stream, have decided, yeah, this predates the Fuchsia City that we once know. In fact, possibly the city was built on top of this structure. A structure that, by the way, I went into the game and I excavated the whole thing, effectively destroying the world for a second time because, God, it looks bad. I'm pretty sure my environment level has dropped drastically, but I had to know, I had to uncover and dig down and find out what exactly was inside. What was hiding down the sconce-lit hallways? Was it just a golden treasure room? What was the thing that people were trying to dig up and excavate? Was it the Pokemetal ore that we can find down there? Or was it all to do with the big central chamber, where a wall of blocks that feature unknown lettering can be filled in by mysterious slates that you can find all across the game world? And these slates, when they come together, reveal new. Who built this structure? What is it for? How does it tie into the lore of the Kanto region? And why do Amaze Dragon and I believe that the people who made this knew that one day the world would come to an end? Now, if you want to know who might have built this structure and what it was all for, we might not want to look to Kanto itself, but instead to some of the neighboring regions. Johto is right next door, and Sinnoh is up north. We know this from Heart Gold and Soul Silver and many details scattered throughout the Pokemon franchise. But in the Sinnoh region, for example, we know that the ancient people of what was once Hisui were the Celestica people. They built the Temple of Sinnoh right on the top of Mount Corner. It later became the Spear Pillar. It's an altar to Arceus. And down in the region's foothills, we also have the Salacion Ruin, a ruin dedicated to, well, the unknown. Now, those Pokemon have a connection. When it comes to the Johto region, we also have ruins to the unknown. Of course, the infamous ruins of Alph, where unknown can be caught, and there are puzzles based on assembling blocks together in the correct way, create the image of a Pokemon. Hang on, that seems more than a little bit too familiar.
In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, a hiker takes us to the ruins of Sinjo, built by the ancient people of Sinnoh, possibly even Hisui and Johto, 1,500 years ago. At its heart lies a chamber, like those in Johto, but also with pillars of Sinnoh, blending the two cultures together. It holds the Mystery Stage, which was built to celebrate Arceus with music and dance, and it also doubles as a way to summon the unknown. This points us to the Kimono Girls of Johto, who, like the Lore Keepers of Hoenn, or the Celestica people of Sinnoh, seem to be the lore keepers of this land. They teach the Johto trainers the legends of Ho-Oh and Lugia, who, when brought the title and clear bell items, use them to dance and create music for these local guardians. Kanto, too, does have a ruin in the Sevi Islands, south of the mainlands, where the Tenobi Key opens chambers featuring unknown, and these are the only unknown chambers across the whole Pokemon world, meaning that Kanto's lore has always likely been connected to the unknown, and now, for the first time, we can excavate such a ruin below Fuchsia, stretching from under the Pokemon Center right back to an area that is likely the Safari Zone. This means that the Kimono Girls and their culture have a footprint in this town, which in the end suggests that they were indeed involved.
There is a character in the Kanto story who's related to a Kimono Girl, and that is Bill, the creator of the Pokemon PC system. A system that, just as a little segue, but keep this in your mind, is a system that allowed the people of the Pokemon world to save the Pokemon. So it's a good thing he was around and had a kind of heart that was set to that mission. That'll become important later. But yes, Bill's mother is a Kimono Girl. She lives in Goldenrod City, where there was once a temple much like those found in Equitique, a tower that was old and creaky, so it was torn down. The Goldenrod radio tower was built over what remains of this structure, and the radio director, after you save him, well, he gives you the clear or tidal bell, the items that you use to beckon to Ho-Oh and Lugia with the aid of the Kimono Girls. So is it possible that they also had a footprint in Fuchsia City, where Bill's granddad lives? Could this be his mother's father? 50-50 chance, I guess. He also has siblings that live in this town, so I do wonder if there could be some connection for the Kimono Girls in this area. It would be a good reason as to why Bill's family would be there. And I think there is one when we look to the structure itself. For there's not just the ruin entrance, which is of course the most interesting and appealing thing, but it seems that people stumbled upon this ruin sometime after the Kanto story. But in the northeast, there is an entrance hidden behind these bars of steel, and possibly it was after the deconstruction of the Safari Zone or the PAL Park. People seem to have gone down there to mine something. Yes, certainly if you follow those tracks around, you'll find yourself in the golden treasure room of the ruin, but if the temple was their goal, there are plenty of other places they could have entered from, and the presence of mine carts and a mining track just makes me think that they were after something else, especially because down there seems to be a natural reserve of Pokemetal ore. Pokemetal is a peculiar rainbow ingot that can be crafted into all manner of materials in Pokopia. I mean, there are so many items you can make from it, it's super versatile. Not only that, but there's actually a part of the main story in which Gardevoir kind of comments on the Pokemetal ore that can be found underneath Silphco, another tower which has connections to the lore of the Pokemon world, but I'm not going to get into it into this video. That's maybe a totally different theory at some point in the future. And Gardevoir comments that the ingot seems to give off a special aura. Aura is often associated with Lucario and also has its connections to the life energy of Pokemon. It's not a strange thing at all to have a geode in the Pokemon world, and I'm not talking about Geodude, although Geodude is a living stone, but anyway, a geode that has connections to life energy. Megastones, fossils, odd keystones, evolution stones in general, Z crystals, the red and blue orb. I could go on, there are truly a lot of them. And it makes sense that artifacts of incredible importance in the Pokemon world are crafted from a metal that has some special power to it. The point is, Pokemetal rocks. And what's even more interesting than the Pokemetal is the rare Pokemetal ore, an ore that can be crafted into ingots that are used specifically for the crafting of just 2 items in the game, items that kind of connect the Kimono Girls directly to this space. They are, of course, the Clear and Tidal Bell, the bells used to commune with Ho-Oh and Lugia, instruments to the divine. The metal used for this function specifically hidden underneath a treasure room that, in my opinion at this point, is a decoy to ward people away from the true treasure that is connected to a structure that features a mural to Mew as assembled by the unknown. I mean, this all comes together maybe a little bit too well. But then how does Mew fit into all of this? We do have an answer for that, but we have just a few more bits of evidence to help really solidify and paint this picture.
I'm going to throw some highly speculative small bits here, and I'm just doing this because I do think they fit this theory well. First of all, many people believe that Kanto and Johto are really just a modern separation of what was once one big region. They share a Pokemon League, and Lugia is very often connected with the legendary birds who roost across Kanto. Toby has spoken about the Towers of Lavender before, and now with the presence of this rare Pokemetal underneath it, I wonder if Silphco could have once been a tower built and then later rebuilt to worship these Pokemon. The legends of Pokopia are indeed the Kanto and Johto legends with a Kyogre and Volcanion thrown in. But again, Toby does explain that in his Pokopia Apocalypse video, so you guys probably know about this already. As for the legends, the Sevi Islands are in the Kanto region, but they also feature many Johto Pokemon, including also having a roosting spot for Ho-Oh and Lugia in Naval Rock. So there is a light implication that perhaps they share a mythology. Pokopia just brings this up in full force. Now, I have some more fun bits of evidence to pull in, but to put this in stone, and stone is the operative word here, did you notice that early on we mentioned the mine entrance was in the east? Except it's not, it's in the west. I mean, it's clearly in the west. Right, Toby?
Now, you might think this has something to do with the fact that the Kanto map is upside down. A lot of people had sent me messages about this when the game came out, but no, that's the Pokemon's perspective on the Kanto region, or just not being able to navigate a map. I mean, why should they have to? Certainly the people of Fuchsia City knew their east from their west. There are signs outside the city that literally use those directions correctly. So it is odd to me that in Generation 1 Safari Zone, there is a sign in the west that says east area, and a sign in the east that says west. You might think this is just a coding error. After all, in the text file, the east sign is correctly labeled as east and the west sign correctly labeled as west. In Fire Red and Leaf Green, they had a chance to fix it and it get even more confusing because the Area 2 sign says in the files that it's the north sign and the east is still west and the west is still east. So what's going on here? Well, putting my tinfoil hat on for a moment, I think that could be a lore reason. Something you'll know if you've ever visited the ruins of Alph or watched my video on the Unknown. It's a very good video and you should definitely watch it. You will know that the Unknown can communicate via radio waves. Radio waves are just a form of electromagnetism, and electromagnetism is very important in the world of Pokemon. I mean, radio waves generally in the Generation 2 story. The radio director, the radio tower being built over what was once a tower to Ho and Lugia. Oh, the lore goes so deep. The radio director is very worried that Team Rocket are going to take over that tower and all the Pokemon of the Johto region are going to be at risk. I mean, the Lake of Rage, they use radio waves to force Magikarp to evolve into Gyarados. And Magnemite and Magneton have a ton of Pokedex entries talking about how their electromagnetism messes around with radio waves. Magnemite's also important to the Pokopia story, so I feel like there's even more clues for even more theories for you to let us know about in the comments, or maybe I'll come up with some more and make more videos like this. Subscribe so you don't miss those. Anyway, we know that the Unknown use radio waves and mess about with them, and electromagnetism is how we navigate. It's how we know our norths from our souths and our easts from our wheasts. If some structure, like a temple to the Unknown, for example, was hidden underground underneath the Safari Zone, it would be easy for people with a compass plotting their signs to ultimately get lost and confused. They wouldn't know where they were except for the Rhydon statues marking the end of the Safari Zone treasure hunt. Rhydon statues, by the way, are very, very important in the world of Pokemon. I mean, yeah, they appear in gyms or in the Pokemon Mansion, but in Generation 4, we see these same Rhydon statues specifically in both the ruins of Alph and the Sinjoh ruins. Here they are again, above this very site, perhaps marking a site of importance. A site where maybe one day people should dig. But okay, you've waited long enough. Why then a mural to Mew?
Mew seems disconnected to the legendary birds and beasts. It's thought to be the ancestor of all Pokemon life, and it's certainly very adaptable to its environment, like Ditto knowing Transform. In an event where Pokemon life became scarce, summoning such a Pokemon would be a useful thing to help the world flourish and repopulate.
The way Mew appears, though, is unlike any other Pokemon in the game. It's not coming from the Pokemon PC system. When the slates slot together, pulses of psychic energy appear, and then, as if apparating from somewhere else, the pink portal pulsates and Mew awakens and asks if you are the one who had called it here. And if you know your Pokemon, it's very reminiscent of the third Pokemon movie.
Tablets featuring unknown lettering tap into the emotions of a young girl who has lost her father. She imagines her father as the protective Entei, and then a pink portal opens up where Entei is created as an illusion. And it's there that we get that famous first line.
Are you the one who has called me here?
It's the same. We believe this Mew is intended not to be a real Mew, but rather a hope, a dream. Let's look back at that mystery stage. It brings forth an Arceus, and Arceus using the Unknown creates legendary Pokemon, a new emissary of time or space, or whatever we're deciding Giratina represents this week.
Suicune is said to have a special connection to the Unknown, and it may be the product of the hopes of the people who watched the tower in Ecruteak fall, the Komono girls no less, to save the trapped Pokemon.
The Unknown summon an Entei from Molly Hale's emotions, and in fact in Pokemon Journey we have a very similar feature happening, where a young girl missing her Cleffa meets the Unknown, and they tap into her mind and bring about an eternal night, keeping her Cleffa around. The Unknown tap into the minds of people and Pokemon and create what they desire, what they wish for, and so creating a stage where one might dance or sing, or where instruments of the gods are forged, one where a block puzzle might cause an image to be created of a specific Pokemon, thought to be the ancestor of all, would create an image as a reward for finding all of these mystery slates. So whoever completed that puzzle must have been so compelled to know the answer that when that image of Mew is created, they borrow the Unknown's power. The Unknown's power taps into the mind of the person seeing this image complete for the first time. There must be so want and meaning put about it, and that image allows for the creation of the new species Pokemon Mew. A chance for Pokemon life to start again.
Why would the Komodo girls want that? Why would they hide the chamber in a way that one day a city would be built atop it, but then also scatter the blocks in a way where, unlike the ruins of Alph, the puzzle would likely never be solved?
Well, it's simple. By scattering these seemingly indestructible blocks, possibly they are also made of the same rare Pokemetal. After all, the Clear and Tidal Bell are also quite indestructible, but just by making these and scattering them across the Poke-Earth in all different places, it would be likely that they would survive any apocalyptic event, be resistant to any meteorological event, whether it was generated by people or some powerful Pokemon, and I did a whole video on that as well that I cannot recommend enough if you're interested in this topic. That is how the Pokemon world got destroyed. And the thing is, it could be any number of ways. Yeah, it could just be human destruction, but the world is filled with world-ending creatures. But just by having these blocks scattered across the local area, it would guarantee that anyone that finds this structure and finds these blocks, all it would take is just one person to find them, would be able to bring them together. And if they were able to do so, they would be able to generate this image and bring forth Mew. Pokemon that contains the ancestry, the DNA of all other Pokemon species, a progenitor of Pokemon life. They'd be able to restart the Pokemon wilderness. All you'd need is one person or one Pokemon alive to do so. It's like an insurance policy. I guess if we were doing that in modern day, you might do it with the modern Pokemon PC system. Just this is built not on machinery, but instead on the magic powers of the unknown and the Noah's Ark that is Mew. Assemble those blocks together, then well done. You have survived the Pokemon apocalypse. In fact, that might be the only time these blocks are ever found. And doing so brings forth a Pokemon that would allow the Pokemon world to start again. Thank you so much to my subscribers and Patreons who support what I do. There's a link to the Patreon down below, as well as, of course, to the video of how the Pokemon world got destroyed in the first place. I'm gonna go play some Pokopia.